Welcome to PhillyCocoa Presents Side Project Spotlight, episode 54. This is a developer's journey into making cool stuff. I'm Kotaro.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Aaron.
And we are PhillyCocoa, a Philadelphia-based Cocoa Heads community focused on Apple development that primarily, but not exclusively, means iOS, Mac, tvOS, watchOS, and VisionOS development. PhillyCocoa's two desire is to take you higher on your own developer journey.
Ooh, that was 99% correct.
99.
I think I detected
hopefully,
only a tiny bit of mispronunciation in one word.
Yeah, and hopefully it's the actual number, the correct episode number.
I'm pretty sure, but yeah, these are getting up there.
Fix it out.
Actually, I started using, last time I used Descript to edit the podcast. That's the one where they seem to be more video focused now, but that's the one where it gives you like a transcript. You can edit it with text. I'm probably not going to stick with that because it's kind of expensive to do it per month, but I wanted to give it a shot. Still low on an M1 Max machine, and it's all cloud-based, which I'm not like a huge fan of, and so things, but it's worth trying out. And when it has two features which are very useful for us. Number one, it has this mode where you can, I guess using some kind of model to improve the audio quality, which I tried to use on Kotaro, because then this week, just like last week, you have to be using your AirPods. And so it's like it creates studio audio or something like that is what it's called. And it actually worked. It helped. I mean, I toned it down a lot. The first pass of it on like its default was way too much, but toned it way back. And I think it improved it. And the other thing it does is allows you to go through and find all the ums and stuff like that that you want to remove and automatically remove them. I might have been a little too aggressive, and I went back a few times and had to fix things, and hopefully it wasn't too weird. So this next time I'll be a little less aggressive with the tooling.
How many ums did you find? Does it give you a count?
Yeah, it gives you a count somewhere in there. It found a bunch.
Yeah,
but
I'm sure
sometimes, and it has other filters too for like repeated words. That one kind of messed things up when I tried to use it. But it's useful. It's a very cool tool to try out again instead of just using the standard.
Are you on a trial? You doing
no,
a trial?
I had to pay for a month in order to get the features I wanted to try, because it's very limited, and our podcast was too long to use the free tools for everything. So if it was like a half-hour maybe episode, I could have maybe gotten away with it. And even then, I couldn't have done all of the things I wanted to try. So I was like, whatever. I'll put. It's not cheap though. So it was. What was I don't remember what it is. $10. So I'm probably not going to keep with it. But I like to check. I think we talked about before. Just podcast editing and production, and I'm just always looking for something better than Logic, and the traditional editor.
I feel like Logic is super overkill for something like a podcast editor.
I mean, yeah, it is. What's nice about seeing a big transcript, even if it's not 100% accurate, is it's a lot easier to scan if you know that you don't need to listen to the whole thing, especially. And then it gives you a transcript at the end if you really want to publish that.
Is Logic, or what is considered the de facto cast for the podcasters out there? Do you know?
I don't think it's Logic. Well, unless you're a Mac user. What's that open source one? The name is escaping me. The audio editor.
OBS?
Not OBS.
No?
That's for live stream. See, the audience is like
oh,
yelling at us right now.
Audacity.
Yes, Audacity. That one is probably very popular because it's free. If you have a Mac, GarageBand, I used to use that. That was very popular. These are all variations on the same kind of audio editor. Sure. So stuff like that. And there's a few other ones that are out there that I've seen that are more geared towards podcasts, but they're all kind of work in a similar way, I think. But Descript was one of the first ones I saw that was very different. And as I said, now they seem more focused on video editing, because you can use it as a nonlinear video editor, which I haven't tried yet. But I think when I first encountered them, they're all about gas.
I'm looking at.
How does that work for video that doesn't have a lot of talking?
Well, you have you set up your scenes, I think they call them in there. So like your clips, like in a normal a normal video editor works, where you have a bunch of clips together, and you put them on like a timeline. It's something like that, but it's not presented that way. It's presented. I think it's more like it's presented like a script where you have scenes and the scenes have the clips in them. I only kind of reviewed the documentation. I didn't actually try it yet. But the whole premise of the script, from what I understand from my limited use of it, is that it's more about creating that transcript and working off of it as text. But then it also has more traditional tools in there so you can do some editing. But it's definitely simpler to get into, like versus Final Cut Pro, which I've used to make videos. It is simpler, but it's more very opinionated. I would say it's opinionated in that respect because it kind of has rails. It kind of you do things in a certain way, the script way, and then it has certain features on there. It's kind of a batteries included type of deal. Like as I said, like the removing of ums or the audio, modification. A lot of tools have similar things, but they're just very easy to use in the script.
Can I change my voice to have like a Darth Vader voice?
I don't know. Maybe you can definitely, which I haven't tried since an early version of this, maybe over a year ago. You can record your own voice, like you can type in words that you missed, and it'll be in your own voice. But I think you had to use to train it.
Yeah, right.
But if you, I don't know if it works that way anymore. If it can actually train it from the recording data, I don't know. But you would at the time I used it, once you train it, and then it would be able to repeat words, so you could fix little things in there. I don't know. I think it's a pretty cool product. I don't think I'm gonna stick with it yet, mostly because I felt like at first I was more productive, and then I kept finding errors. But it's probably mostly my own fault for being too aggressive with their automatic features.
So when they say does it spot the ums and allows you to do like the find and replace, basically, of like find and just remove, or does it automatically do it and it tells you post process, like, all right, here are all the ums we took out?
There's several filters you choose. You say I want to remove ums, and then you can have it just automatically do all of them it finds, or you can go one by one and it'll highlight them all in the transcript. You can find them and fix them. And it looks for, I think, the waveform, and then that synchronizes with the script, so it removes in the script. But sometimes it's a little aggressive, so there's a way you can look at the audiograms at the bottom and kind of just move a little slider around so that you undo some of it. So there's adjustment controls in there, but if you have a lot of them that you've gone through and removed, then it's a lot of work. And then is it worth it? Because there's other ways you can do that with plugins and other tools on a more professional workflow, which Descript feels like it's prosumer to me in my limited use of it more than like straight up professional, which I guess leads us into our primary topic today, Segue,
which you're great at.
Which we wanted to talk a bit about the Apple's Scary Fast event, and
that was pretty fast.
Yeah, and just to focus on the specifics of it, a lot of people did that, but what we thought was that it was really demonstrating new opportunities. Perhaps we want to talk about new opportunities for developers, for creatives, maybe for businesses that are now more available than ever because of the recent technological changes out of Apple last couple of years.
Yeah, I kept thinking about it from a standpoint of like, what are the, all these newer available to us, the increased amount with the M3, we have ray trace, mesh shading, if you have any of the new, the iPad Pros or the iPhone Pros, you have LiDAR scanners, or even like Vision Pro with its there's plenty of opportunities. Either a content creator, quote unquote, or an application developer. One of the things I'm still curious about, if I was to build an app, on my own, where are the sort of opportunities I see from that I could take advantage of, and build something pretty cool. Is the way I'm sort of looking at these. Is the way I look at the opportunities. I mean, look at the opportunities from a content creation standpoint in terms of like, how do I utilize, for example, the iPhone 15 Pro? They talked about how that whole scary event video flybys, a lot of zoom ins and all sorts of high production value set pieces, but they still, at the core of it, was an iPhone 15 Pro that was used to sort of take the actual videos. Something
Yeah,
about
so
that.
the big thing from the event, besides the actual products, which we might talk about a bit, but since you mentioned it, was the very end after the Apple logo appears. It says in fairly large font, so you notice it. I think it said filmed on iPhone.
Yeah,
edited on Mac.
On iPad.
Yeah, on iPad would have been good. No, Mac. I don't think even Apple's like, our iPads aren't quite ready for that yet. I mean, it's only been like how many years, but no, it's caused a bit of a firestorm on the social medias, which I thought was amusing and odd in my view, because I thought it was pretty obvious what they were doing. Was demonstrating very clearly that you can take an iPhone Pro Max, iPhone 15, Pro Max, slot it into an actual professional workflow at the level that Apple finds acceptable. Like, it's apparently everything else was essentially the same as they would have done for any other keynote type event, same kind of lighting and rigging, and they had drone shots, had professional editing and color grading, all that kind of stuff, but they used the iPhone as the actual camera. And some people, like on the internet, were confused by this, I think, and they thought Apple was being disingenuous somehow because they had all this other equipment. But what I think was going on is they were just trying to say, yeah, we call this a pro device. Here's an example of professionals, like highly paid professionals, using tens of thousands of dollars in equipment, and they're able to use an iPhone in that same workflow. They might otherwise use a much more expensive camera, but it's not really about I don't think it's really about the expensiveness of the camera, because it's like the camera's not always the most expensive thing. It's about the fact that you could use an iPhone there, and I think that has implications down market, especially.
I think that I don't know. Like I've always been sort of like perplexed about people who sort of poo-poo the iPad, and like I'm confused by it in that sense of like. It's like, well, the thing about the iPad that I think people don't get is like a lot of people who, like, we've talked about this before, is like digital artists or people who are on the go a lot, that as a way to like sort of sketch out ideas, draw their comic books, do their DJ sets on, make music with, write novels on. It's malleable in so many different ways from a professional tool point of view. And you would never have known that was done on an iPad or iPad Pro in a lot of cases.
Yeah, right now, people do use iPads in full-fledged, highly paid professional settings, not just
one thing I thought was
stuff.
kind of funny, was hilarious. Like, so a game came out, which is a very AAA game, very popular,
right,
huge on the console and PC. And it came out on the Mac a while ago, and that was optimized for Metal. One of the interesting things was when the iPhone 15 Pro came out, basically that processor was powerful enough for you to actually play a fully fledged Resident Evil 8 AAA game with all the trimmings and whatever, rating and all that stuff, right out the gate. And then the interesting is, because the iPhone 15 Pro had a connector, a port, you can connect it to an external monitor and also connect your PS5 controller to the iPhone and play it as if it was a console.
Yeah, we might have talked about that briefly, but I remember seeing a clip on X.
On X.
I think it was X on. Can't say that social network anymore without saying it weird.
without like, saying it weird.
But I saw a clip, and it was playing using the iPhone as a console, essentially, which with everything, and that's interesting. That is in the same vein as we're talking about filming on an iPhone. You now have this first generation. I mean, even the 14, the 13 were pretty good, but this is really the first generation that you could play, as you said, a game that was originally meant for like an actual console and a computer port.
Right.
It's not a mobile version of it, right? It's not a different version.
No,
it's the same.
In fact, don't play it with a touchscreen.
Yeah. So
I hear
this
is horrible.
Yeah. So we have this new generation of devices coming out. powered by the advancements Apple's been making in their silicon and other aspects of their software and hardware. And that's interesting because if you're a game developer, Apple really does seem to be now with the M3 line, and is it A17 now? A17 Pro is a chip, right? Is that what it's called?
I think A17 Pro. Yeah. Something Pro. Something Pro.
And with the new iPhone chips, with this hardware, they really are pushing the idea that you can do AAA, as you say, games. Whether that will attract developers, I don't know. But if I was an independent game developer, there's at least more of a reason to consider Mac and especially iPhone. I think the iPhone stuff with the ray tracing they added on that and the fact that it can play like quote unquote like console games, that is even more attractive because we already know mobile gaming is big. That the platform is big, and we know at least in North America that iPhones are very dominant among like younger people. So there's a potential there. I mean, you'd have to do more market research, but I could imagine it's at least worth doing the research to see if it might be a good idea to port to the newest iPhone hardware.
The question is, when is that level of processor come into the Apple TV?
Yeah, maybe. That would be a good idea, too. Although not as many people, I guess, as an iPhone. I do, but...
Probably more than you would think, but... I guess compared Fire, was it a Fire Pro or a Amazon Fire Stick? Like,
oh my God,
not even close.
Okay, now to be fair, it's an old one. I got the 1080p one for an experiment. That is so slow. I mean, it works, but my God, it's slow. You can't really do anything except
it's like I was in an Airbnb and I was playing around with one, and it is like janky as like there's jank and then there's like the Fire. It's just like it takes forever to load, and once it loads it takes a while to settle in. Like you almost have to like walk away, make some tea, come back, and like okay, now it actually like when I press a button it'll actually respond. But, and even then it's like it takes forever to like go to the next option.
Oh yeah. However, it's like you can get the cheapest ones like the 1080p one. I think it was like $20, $25 something. So if you want to if you have an old TV, and this is the thing I was using for, if you have an old TV, you want to add something like I was trying to add a cheap security camera feed to it, and you could just buy a $5 piece of software on the App Store on the Amazon stick, plug this thing into a TV you already have, and for $20 or whatever, $25, whatever was on sale, this Fire Stick has enough power to do that. So if you're just going to have some application that just runs like in kiosk mode kind of on there, it's actually great for that. I mean, it's a lot cheaper than an Apple TV, and it doesn't need to be performant of just running the same app all the time. But it was painful to set up. It really was. A little less painful, I think, if you connect it to your Amazon account. But, yeah.
I mean, that is the one thing I like having, I don't know, Aaron, like I've been mucking around a lot of different TV, smart TVs in our work environment, and it's just like, the jank in all of them is just unbelievable. I mean, I get that they're all slow hardware, but
yeah, they're running on a potato, so it's whatever
potato
that costs 25 cents. The chips that they're running on.
But I mean, it's just so lazy. It just feels like. I mean, and then it's just they have the flashiest GUI, which I understand, but it's just like it's barely holding on to like.
Yeah. But if the Apple TV undoubtedly will get upgraded at some point, and I think, I mean, it makes sense to me to upgrade it to the latest and greatest, although that is more expensive to do. But if they do that, then they end up being able to make the claim that you can actually run console games on it, which makes it competitive with like a Switch or something.
If they ever, which it will take a while, because one of the reasons why sometimes I think Aid is held back a lot, Apple Arcade being their game subscription that you can get either by itself for $1 a month. Or,
I think it's going up.
Well, no, it was originally my bets.
Yeah.
Or with the Apple One, which is like something like $20 or something. But I always thought that the games, while particularly nice, were always kind of like almost as if it was coming from like a generation from like even prior to like the right in terms of or like performance or like in terms of technical
impressiveness
for lack of a better word.
That demo for the iPhone,
Mhm.
where they turned on the ray tracing, and you're like, ooh.
But so it makes me sad because like imagine like now if you an Apple TV with the A17 Pro, which I'm calling it A17, but whatever that the latest
Yeah.
version is. Oh
Can you
man,
imagine? Okay, I'm gonna look it up.
that is a legit that would be a legit game changer for the Apple TV. Like in terms of like, hey, here is now a console quality. We'll probably talk about like PS5 quality um, performance on on a small little like puck of a machine. I mean, that's wild when you think about it.
Yeah. However, I'll say, maybe it's just anecdotal, but
Mhm.
you know, like the Switch is popular because it's portable. Now, I don't really use it that way, but I believe that is how it's mostly used. I mean, at least that's
Yeah,
enough so that Nintendo added other Switches that couldn't even hook up to the TV, and
right.
that form factor and mobile gaming is of course done primarily on iPhones, and then I guess someone on
Hmm.
iPads and
Sure.
other devices. And as I said before, the demographics show the game playing group, you know, the kids, heavily on iPhones and iPads in North America. So if I was a game developer, I think Apple TV, that would be a nice to have. But the
Hmm.
fact that the iPhones starting this year are having this stuff, so which means starting as early as next year, you'd probably have a decent you'd have they handed down in families, and so you know within a couple years you're going to have a whole bunch of devices that are capable of its thing of ray tracing and using advanced metal shaders and such.
I mean, one strategy I've heard, uh, a lot of indie devs, maybe even AAA for that matter, they do sort of wait for each platform. Like they take their time. They start with one platform, let's just say the PlayStation and Xbox, right, or a set of platforms, and then eventually, once they settle in and they kind of get the bugs out, the kinks out, then they might port it to PC, and then maybe if they get some kind of deal or somehow they manage to pull off, either through a cloud gaming service, provide the games through that, or um, you basically it's a slow rollout is what I'm getting at, right? So like you take
Right.
your time, like you commit and you have your big splashy moment in like for two platforms, make it exclusive for like 6 months to a year to like refine the game, fix the bugs, and then properly port it to all the other platforms, reasonable shape, right? And then that way, over time, the revenue can keep coming, so to speak.
Right.
Uh,
So that could be a good strategy to use here,
mhm,
where you maybe wait a little bit to port it to iOS as the hardware
sure.
starts coming out. But in the
Yep.
meantime, you hopefully are making revenue on the more established locations. I don't know. That is one thing. I'm not a game developer, so I don't know if that's a smart move, but it sounds logical to me.
Sure.
And you know, but this is something that is somewhat new. I mean, it's not totally new. There's been games, but I guess what I'm trying to wrap my head around is I didn't grasp at first with the iPhone release was that there was actually something of a step change in abilities of the iPhone for gaming
Mhm.
versus before, because they announced like a Resident Evil game, right? And I was like, I thought that game had already come out on mobile, and it did, right? But it was like a different version of it, wasn't it?
Yeah, it
Resident.
was like, well, not that particular version. So there was Resident Evil 8, and I think originally that was on the Mac. Um, and that was actually one of the few games that they actually their shaders to metal shaders. Like they actually spent the time and effort
Right.
to actually do a proper port using metal
Yeah.
shaders. But then because they did that, I think um, get it to compile on the iPhone was less of a problem. It was not as
Right.
big
But
of a leap.
what I'm saying is, but the new hardware with the iPhone 15, what is it letting you do versus before? Because we had titles like called Resident Evil, ports on the iPhone before,
Sure.
right? Just as an example. So what's
Good
going to be
question.
different going forward with a port? I'm under the impression that the ports are going to now be like that. I didn't play a lot of these games. I really at all.
Mhm.
So I'm not. It's not clear in my head what's different about them. But I'm guessing that the ports on iPhone were in some way just made degraded versus the console versions, or smaller, or different graphical fidelity. Something was changed, right, for them to work, whereas now they may not have to be as changed.
Yeah, so
Right.
I guess yeah, they would if they did it, if they spent the time, it would be either like like a really dumbed down version or like a really old version. So it's not even like how like Resident Evil games, at least the recent series, they have like a remake version of an old PS1 or PS2 game.
Yeah.
So they just recently Resident Evil 4 remake, which is one of the best GameCube games to ever come out. Um, and I think I remember playing that on the PS2 when they finally ported it to that. But they remade that game for the PS5 and maybe the PS4, but mostly PS5, and that's coming out on the iPhone, along with a game like Death Stranding, which is an obnoxiously challenging
Why do they keep
game.
bringing up that game? Walking simulator game. I don't understand.
Well,
That
from a technical
looked good.
fidelity point, forget the like whether or not the mechanics is any fun. What's interesting about that, right? So let's get back to that point about portability, right? This game, very similar to Switch, if you want to connect to like a PS backbone, you can do it. And then now you have like a Switch-like kind of gameplay, very similar like a Steam Deck, actually, right? And then you can take it out and then connect it to USB, use a USB to HDMI connector to your TV, and then just wirelessly connect to your PS5 controller.
Is the difference that Death Stranding is now only going to work on iPhone 15s and later, or it's going to be
15 Pro
Pro and later? Is that what's happening?
Yeah.
Is it that you could not have ported it effectively before this hardware change? I'm trying to understand I'm under the impression that this is a big change in the hardware. What is a change?
That's a really good question, actually, because I've sort of thought about it in my mind. One of the interesting things of the WWDC, the things they talked about was they provided a tool, right, that allowed PC game developers to actually test how their game, like it was like a translation layer. I forgot what the name of it was. It was like an open source conversion. Yeah, it basically translated PC gaming. Is it DirectX? I forgot the API.
X12 translation layer. It was
to be translated to directly to whatever the Mac version of that is.
I think it's a game porting toolkit.
Yeah. So people just did that just for kicks and giggles. Developers did that for kicks and giggles, and they were like, "I got this game," or even people who knew how to do it, right? To just run the executable on that port, and they were like, aside from like the fact that it's a little janky here and there, it wasn't a bad port. Like you could literally probably just get away with just porting that,
right?
and not even care about doing any metal conversions.
So we've had now then multiple generations of Apple improving game performance, theoretical game performance, and the A17 M3 lines are it looks like they're a big jump because they're adding specific hardware support for things like ray tracing, and the M3, I think they said dynamic GPU caching is a big deal and mating. So the combination of these theoretically should mean that an M3 Mac, and then I guess to a lesser extent the A17 Pros, so to what extent they share this same hardware, can create game experiences that were not possible at the same fidelity. Either not possible at all or just not at the same fidelity as before. So while they've been getting better, the games on these devices, we're entering a period now where there's more parity, I think, between an iPhone version of the game, a Mac version of the game, and a console version of the game. Not 100%, but like they're closer than they've ever been. That's
Yes.
the impression, that's the message I'm getting from Apple, and I trust that they're being correct. And one of the big things they talk about, I think it was dynamic caching. Am I remembering the words right?
Yes.
GPU caching, memory. Mm-hmm. So they were saying that the M3s can basically utilize memory more efficiently.
Mm-hmm.
So that should lead to improved performance instead of having to allocate memory for the one item that's the largest amount. I mean, that's like the largest item to go in memory. It can just dynamically allocate the memory. So,
I mean, you do have me like from a compile standpoint, right?
mm-hmm.
Like you were to say, okay, like maybe I targeted the M1 or M2 architecture, or whatever the M series architecture when building my game, right? Then I go, well, how hard would that the work would take to actually get that working on the iPhone,
Right.
right?
Well,
Like
I
I
mean,
wonder, like,
yeah, that's
like
Apple's whole plan.
right,
They want you making it for the Mac or making it for the iPhone and having it be simple to port it to the other one. Ideally, almost no work if you can get away with it. They want They seem to be really making the public statements and building the tooling to try to get PC games onto the Mac, because I think there's an opportunity for the first time since the Apple Silicon came in play to actually make a shot of it, because before then the Macs were just totally incapable of being decent gaming devices, in my view anyway, in a lot of people's views.
I mean, it's kind of interesting. I've not, like, I know people crap on Mac apps, for Kingdom Come in terms of like people who do native apps.
Yeah.
But I have noticed a slight uptick in native Mac app development by iOS developers because of Swift UI.
Yeah. I mean, we predicted this in PhillyCocoa discussions for years, like with the cross-platform tooling that Apple was releasing, and then especially Swift UI. I mean, why not? The bar is lowered to make something decent, if not highly polished, and then the amount of work necessary to make a highly polished Mac app is less than it was before. And even if it's not still 100% as good as like an AppKit app, and that's the philosophical thing. Like, are you okay with it being not as good as a really highly polished AppKit app? I am. I think a lot of people are, because you can get pretty far now, and it's better to have it on the Mac as a native thing than not at all, in my view. But
the way I'm looking at it from Apple's point of view, at least the way I'm looking at it from all of the iOS developers at this moment are more or less baby Mac developers. So you could think of it like when a genre first comes out, it's not really known to be a genre, right? It's just people just making this particular type of music or this particular type of art or whatever, and it's all over the place. Like 3D anime was horrible for years. As an example, I can't tell you how many horrible 3D anime that I've seen. I was like, they're never going to get this working. It's never going to look good.
I think most of them were commissioned by Netflix.
Sure, yeah. You're not wrong. I mean, those Ultraman was horrible. But I saw a recent one, not the Dragon Ball one, but even though I heard that was good, but there was an anime called The First Slam Dunk, which mixes 2D with 3D. And I remember thinking, wow, this is really, you can tell, but you know why they did it, right? So there's some element of like, they've created a specific style that sort of meshes into itself, almost like a whole new genre of like animation. That I kept thinking that takes time basically to sort of evolve. So I think like a lot of the iOS developers are slowly evolving over time to become really good. Within 2 to 3 years, we'll probably see some really interesting Mac Watch and probably VisionOS apps. Like I expect the first VisionOS apps to be nothing more than glorified iPad apps for the first year. It'll take them at least 2 to 3 years for them to really grok what they can do with it.
Yeah. But it's coming.
Yeah. It's an opportunity, right? Like, when I think about like, I've sort of been, I guess, sort of like with all the recent layoffs, etc. I've sort of gone back to thinking like, one of the things that's interesting about layoffs is that it sort of forces people to sort of rediscover opportunities or look for new opportunities. Not necessarily by choice, but by almost like the fact that you have to think about it, right? And I kept thinking, well, if that situation happens, reason like where are the opportunities? Where is the next thing, right? Of sort of technology. Sort of, you know how the Alan Kay line of like, the future is now, it's just not unevenly distributed.
Yeah,
That kind of
yeah.
line is just basically saying there's stuff out there that we could sort of like
Right.
choose and then mix into something different.
What you can do is pay for a subscription to the OpenAI API, and then build literally anything.
Geez.
Build literally anything. Slap AI in the name. Sell it to somebody, some VC, for some cash.
I heard like that the hype of that is all dying out, partially because you're so dependent on OpenAI. Like that doesn't create a quote unquote moat, right? Or like
the hype
business
cycle
value.
has been quick for this one.
Yeah, the cycle is like, I don't know about
Well-
you, Aaron, but like have you noticed the die down of like the hype cycle, or is it just me? Or like a
I don't
slow
know.
die down?
I was kind of ignoring it, so I don't know.
I have noticed that yes, there's to a degree there's also been some stats I saw recently about like salaries and stuff are pretty high for AI expertise, but
how much you get
prompting.
paid being a prompt? Was it a prompt or prompt engineer?
I think it's a prompt engineer if you want to be classy, and it's a prompt engineer if you want to be elite. So,
I got you.
we're bringing up the '90s hacker speak. So
goodness.
but quote unquote AI, and we all know I hate the term AI, but that is an area of growth. It's an area that Apple Silicon chips for Apple developers actually allow you to do more on your device than you could have done before. It's like in fact, didn't Apple even mention that as a use case for the I thought they did
very
with the Macs.
briefly.
Very briefly, like if
Very
you
briefly.
because you can take out well, maybe you wouldn't take out a mortgage, it's too expensive now. You could, I don't know, sell your Tesla if you have one, and then use the money to buy a tricked out M3 Max with 128 gigs of RAM and a few terabytes of storage, and you could run some significant AI models on there. Let's say take a mortgage out to buy it, but no one would do that now. They would have not now.
I was about to say a mortgage would get you like at least three, or a down payment on a mortgage would get you at least like three.
Yeah, if you were
three maxed out MacBook Pros.
If you're like me and you have some dim dream of once owning a home, and so you were saving some money, and that dream has been killed by inflation, you could use the down payment you're saving.
You can own a timeshare. How's that?
I can own a timeshare, yes, and an M3 Max, because damn, those chips are expensive. But anyway, those laptops though are just the beginning. They haven't even come out with an M3 Ultra yet. I mean, that's going to be double
that's right.
that, so you're going to have even more RAM to work with. So the point is, and these models, there's a lot of work in the open source area to make open source models. But as Kotaro, you were right on the money, I think, that a lot of the active development has been in locally run models run on your home hardware. People are building PCs to do this stuff. So if you're an Apple developer, you would rather be able to do at least some of this on your Mac, who you're familiar with, and Apple is providing hardware that is capable of this. Well, according to them anyway. We'll see. I've never tried it. But if they're not, blowing smoke, then that is an opportunity. If you want to get into the AI area, you're not locked out because you're on a Mac. Maybe you're even going to benefit from it. I don't know. We'll see how well it works. So that's an area there, especially if you and we talked about before integrating AI models into your apps and on an iPhone, an iPad, and Macs, because they have good neural engine support in there and they have good machine learning algorithms, machine learning APIs, and hardware support, that you can build stuff that runs well on this hardware that is in a lot of people's hands. So that is an actual opportunity now that is provided by the hardware and software changes for the last couple of years.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, for me, I always prefer the one where the magic trick is kind of very subtle. It almost doesn't present itself as a magic trick.
Oh, yeah, the actual implementations. But the fact that you can do that now, like, you could use it. You can be as flashy as an assistant you type to. It could be more like just more traditional machine learning stuff, identify what's a hot dog, what's a sausage.
That's Aaron's new project.
No, I need something better than that.
Hot dog or sausage. I mean, look, that's a challenge.
Wait,
challenge.
hold on, Aaron. Hold on.
Because isn't a hot dog a kind of sausage?
Talking about this. is kind of sort of, well, how do you can you distinguish between the two if you presented like here's a hot dog and you have a couple hot dogs, right? You could have a Nathan's hot dog, you could have a Long Island hot dog, you can have whatever, right? Wait,
have one of those beef Frank's Park ones that
turkey
plump.
ones,
Yeah.
ones.
Veggie hot dogs, which look nasty and don't taste that great.
Amish hot dogs that looks delicious.
We're just going through every hot dog known to me. It's like that scene from Forrest Gump where he's just listing all the shrimp, all the shrimp dishes. He gets to the end.
You think that's so simple, Aaron, to differentiate between a hot dog and a sausage?
You're gonna need one of these M3 Maxes to train that model.
You're gonna need that. Maybe you need a language like Mojo, huh? Maybe.
Ooh.
Maybe you need one of those languages.
Tease us about Mojo before we go, because we're running out of time and we've been all over the place. But what is Mojo? Because you've been telling us about this off podcast.
You've been hyping this thing up, and
I don't know. I don't know that much about it.
Well, we know even less.
It's like
so feel free to enlighten us.
A new superset of Python from Chris Latner and his modular, and trying to make AI tools like much more optimized. In terms of being able to write stuff in Python and not have it run ridiculously slow, and not have to do specialized translation in C or something to actually get it to be performant. So it's supposed to handle all the optimization that you need to like run it on whatever hardware you want, while still being in Python. It's like your Python code, and then it like compiles it with a bunch of compiler magic that he's known for.
And isn't the reason
available on the Mac?
Right, that's what I was gonna say.
Just released on the Mac.
Yeah. Like a week or two ago, the developer tools were released on the Mac, so you can go to their website and download them and start playing around with it. I didn't get very far with actually trying it out because I need a actual project that needs it,
and not hot dog.
We just gave you an actual project. Like literally that's a little hello world.
I think there was like a blog post on their website of like a developer like running the Llama 2 model.
Okay.
Using that, but I haven't actually got the chance to try it, and I don't know actually what kind of hardware you actually need to run that.
An M3 Max with 128 gigs of RAM.
That'll definitely run. Your house.
Only $5,000.
I know, it's only $5,000. It's only.
I mean, I remember when I was doing AI stuff, running out of memory was like always running out of like GPU memory was always the thing, and I don't know what I would do with 128 gigs of RAM.
That's probably still not enough for
in
a lot of
these
stuff.
Cloud environments where you had like a max of like 28 gigs.
Yeah, well,
so 128 gigs is like.
What about the M3 Ultra whenever that gets released?
I mean, we're talking about studio display money, but I mean, now we're going now. I think we should. I know, right? We should aspire to like maxed out.
Well, also you need a Vision Pro, so.
The Vision Pro money too. You know what? Apple is creating opportunities, but these opportunities do not come cheap.
No.
You need to buy into a lot of expensive hardware.
Forget the down payment on the mortgage.
Yeah.
Go all in.
To buy every single Apple platform now is pretty pricey.
What? There's a project for us. Make a simple app or web page, even an app, that just tells you how much would it cost to buy one of everything in the Apple Store. Of the best configuration of whatever it is. And maybe you can have a little like configurations about like maybe I don't want the best version.
Isn't that why we have like a ChatGPT for those questions?
I guess we could try to ask it. I don't think it's going to be able to actually synthesize that. But
Bing or BART would probably be better for that, right? If their models are a little more up to date.
It would give you 3 generation old data.
Well, it would probably try to go to the website. You could tell to go to the website, and then it would try to read the text. Pull a Siri. But it's not. I don't think it's gonna work well. But I'm saying maybe that is a little project too. I would just like to know. I'm just curious. How much would it cost to buy everything that I would want to buy? I should make a spreadsheet and just see how much it really costs. It like would it actually be the cost of a? It would definitely be the cost of a car. Would it be the cost of like not a house, maybe a house in 2018? I don't know. It would be a lot of money.
2018. How about 1980s?
Maybe 1980. Okay, maybe I'm not counting for inflation. So,
Not counting for
but
inflation.
the fact is, though, I guess to wrap things up here, we were a little all over the place, but I guess our point was there's been a lot of stuff, even most recently with the scary fast reveal, but there's been a lot of changes because of the Apple Silicon changes and because of software changes that Apple has brought along the last few years as well, that have opened up opportunities for developers, and not just for developers, but as I think we saw with the Scary Fast event, if you want to make films, have an iPhone now is far more capable and be able to be used in professional workflows. iPads have already been used in a lot of professional settings. So it's a really golden age of Apple hardware if you can afford it, because you could do a lot with it now. And the software has gotten a lot better, and especially if you're a developer, I think there's new opportunities now, from gaming to film, to apps and photography, professional level apps. VisionOS is coming. The next couple of years I think are going to be interesting.
I think it'll be interesting once people can get a handle of utilizing a blend of, assuming you can get past the legalese, a blend of sort of the AI and then in a very subtle way to enhance your art, or at least your speed of building stuff.
Yeah.
Where you want to go, then I think that'll be interesting. I would love it from an animation point of view, just a little bit, not too much. But in any case,
I just want Siri to not be so dumb. I want it to just, when I ask to set a timer, set the bloody timer correctly. That's all I want.
When you say bloody, I think that's where it gets confused.
The slang, yeah, it gets confused about that. So it's like, bloody timer, set bloody timer.
Let me send you to this webpage.
Man.
Anyway, that's all we have for today. You can learn more about PhillyCocoa at phillycocoa.org. There you'll find to our Slack group, meetup schedule, and contact info. If you're feeling generous, please leave a review on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or whatever your podcast platform of choice is, and share us with all your developer friends. And one more thing, I have 3 more jokes, 3 more dad jokes.
Are they AI generated this time?
No, they're horrible Reddit jokes. So first one is, what do you call 8 octopus writing assembly?
I don't know. What?
ARM64.
Oh.
Joke number 2. Microsoft hired a team of Amish programmers, but they were chronically late for work. Their transportation was a little buggy.
Oh, jeez. You got Aaron laughing at that one. That's so bad.
Don't shake your head, Aaron.
I like awful dad/programmer jokes. Look eyes when he's causing us pain.
Last joke, promise. This Java programmer wrote a book so controversial that everybody goes brutally after him and he must flee. What was the book's name? Write once, run everywhere. Run anywhere, I should say.
Run anywhere. Oh, goodness. Programmer humor.
Yeah. Till next time, good luck on your own developer journey. We will cheer for you always.
Identify what's a hot dog, what's a sausage.
That's Aaron's new project.